In a quiet village, where mango trees whispered and drums once danced through the night, two families lived side by side until a single moment shattered everything. Words turned into silence, love hardened into bitterness, and for years, even the wind seemed afraid to speak their names in the same breath. But what if silence isn't peace? What if the past refuses to sleep until it's heard? This is the story of a family torn apart and the echoes that call them back to each other. The old compound stood silent, its iron gates rusted, shut like the lips of a stubborn elder. Cracked walls whispered secrets of laughter, love, and betrayal. Within these walls, two brothers, Kene and Duru, once shared everything until one night changed everything. 30 years ago, a fight erupted over land, a slap, a curse, and the tearing of a little deed. Words became wounds, blood ties, severed. Their father died heartbroken, and the compound closed its doors. Now, the next generation returns. Amaka, Kene's daughter, holds a crumpled letter found in her late mother's Bible. It's addressed to Duru's son, Ebuka. Meet me by the mango tree. It's time. No signature, no explanation. Amaka's hands tremble. Something in her mother's handwriting calls her. A need for truth, a hunger for healing. The village gossips whisper, let sleeping dogs lie. But Amaka isn't here for silence. She wants answers. She wants peace, even if it means opening wounds long buried. As she steps onto the compound grounds, the breeze shifts. A mango drops behind her. A voice, you are late. Ebuka watched her from behind the old mango tree, half curious, half cautious. He knew someone would come one day, but he never expected her. Amaka had his mother's eyes and his uncle's proud posture. The resemblance stabbed him. I got this letter, she said, showing the worn paper. He didn't move. Silence stretched between them. Around them, the compound seemed to listen. The tree under which their fathers once played now cast a heavy shadow. My father said your family cursed ours, Ebuka said flatly. My mother said your father spat on my grandfather's grave. Truth twisted by time. Pain piles down like heirlooms. I don't want to fight, Amaka whispered. But I need to know why we hate each other. Ebuka looked away. He didn't have answers, only stories whispered over fires. Warnings buried in silence. A gust of wind stirred the dust between them. Then start with me, she said. Let me listen. He hesitated, then nodded once. It began with a plot of land, fertile, wide, and rich with palm trees. Their father left no will. Kene the elder son claimed rights by tradition. Duru the younger held government documents showing a different truth. At first, it was verbal, then legal, then violent. On the day of the village council meeting, a machete was drawn. No one died, but the brothers never spoke again. Their mother, Mama Ede, cried into her wrapper, "You will eat each other like yam if you do not forgive." She died the next month. Some say of heartbreak, Children were forbidden to cross the line. The compound was split down the middle. Cousins grew up strangers. Elders chose sides. Neighbors stopped attending weddings, naming ceremonies, even burials. It was a quiet war, but deadly. And the land remained untouched, overgrown with weeds, haunted by mango trees no one harvested. Ebuka and Amaka both had the stories, but none told them what truly happened that night. Who struck first? Who betrayed whom? Only one person remained who knew it all, but she hadn't spoken in years. Auntie Adama lived at the edge of the family compound. They said she had once been vibrant, singing songs that lift souls and make children happy. But since the feud, her voice dried up like a cracked sword. Amaka knelt. Auntie, we need to know the truth. No reply. Only the sound of wind stirring. Her faded wrappers. Ebuka placed the letter on her lap. Something blinked in her eyes. Auntie, when did our father stop talking? For a moment, nothing. Then a word escaped harshly. Broken shame. She looked at them, voice cracking like dry leaves. Your fathers loved each other once, but pride. Her voice trailed off. Amaka reached for her hand. If I tell you, will you carry peace? Ebuka nodded. We will. Tears escaped Adama's eyes. For the first time in years, she began to speak. The story flowed from Adama like water finally breaking through a dam. It wasn't just land. It was betrayal. During a time of drought, Kene had secretly sold oil from the family land meant to feed both households. He never told Duru. When Duru found out, he accused Kene of greed. Kene accused Duru of laziness. The final straw was a harvest festival. Duru's yam won the village prize. Kene, drunk and angry, claimed Duru stole fertilizer from his plots. A fight broke out. The village elders tried to intervene, but both brothers refused to forgive. They took their wives and built walls, real ones, splitting the compound in half. The family never gathered again. Weddings were missed. Children born as strangers. When Adama finished, silence filled the hut. Amaka stood. Then, let's uproot it. Ebuka didn't respond. Not yet. But the seed of change had been planted. As children, they fought over games. As men, they fought over firewood. One day, Duru's wife, Mama Cheta, fetched some firewood from behind Kene's kitchen. Kene's wife, Mama Ngozi, shouted, "Thief!" in front of neighbors. It turned ugly. Pots broke. Words sharper than machetes were exchanged. From that day, the invisible line across the compound turned into a trench of bitterness. Ebuka listened as Auntie Adama recounted this. The wives, too, carried fires into the field, she said, and poured palm oil to make it burn brighter. He looked at Amaka. So we are paying for a quarrel we didn't start. Yes, she said, but maybe we can finish it. 10 years ago, a cousin tried to marry. He invited both families. Kene's people arrived first. When Duru's people entered and saw them, they turned around and left. The groom cried. The bride collapsed in shame. The wedding was cancelled. The food spoiled. The village mocked them. Since then, no one tried to reunite the families. But what if we tried again? Amaka said. A gathering, a neutral space. We won't call it a reunion, just a meal. Ebuka hesitated. You want to invite two warring lions to share meat? Amaka smiled. Not meat, but ofe nsala. Ebuka laughed for the first time. They wrote the letter together. It took hours. Each word was a negotiation. They signed it simply from your children who have no war in their hearts. Amaka handed the letter to the village messenger. He blinked. You want me to deliver this to both Kene and Duro? Yes, she said. Are you mad? Maybe. That evening, both men received identical letters. Neither spoke, neither saw it, but both stared at it longer than expected. On the day of the peace meal, the compound was swept clean. A long table was placed under the mango tree. Bowls of fufu and ofe nsala, ofaku and rice, and drinks lined the table. Every seat was filled except two. Kene and Duru did not come, but others did. Cousins who hadn't spoken in years, aunties who exchanged glances and stories, children who played across imaginary lines. The empty chairs spoke louder than any speech. We plant peace, Amaka whispered to Ebuka. Even if they never sit. But Ebuka kept staring at those chairs and wondering. Inside the house, Amaka wondered. She found a dusty photo in a broken frame. Kene and Duru, boys, arms around each other, grinning under the same mango tree. She brought it out and placed it between the two empty chairs. A hush fell. One auntie gasped. Another began to cry. For a moment, even the children stopped laughing. Then footsteps. Heavy, familiar. Kene stood at the gate, holding a walking stick. His face was torn. Behind him, Duru. The crowd froze, but the brothers only stared at the photo and said nothing. Clouds had gathered all afternoon, dark and threatening, but the rain held back, almost respectfully. Kene stepped forward. Duru did too. They both stood over the photograph. Still no words. Amaka's voice trembled. Will you sit, uncle? Kene looked at her, then at Duru. And for the first time in 30 years, Kene spoke his brother's name, Duru. Duru nodded. Kene. The two men slowly took their seats, and the sky let go. Soft rain fell, cleansing, not furious. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke, because silence was finally speaking for them. As they ate, no one mentioned the past, but it was there in every gesture, every awkward smile. Kene reached for the spoon at the same time as Duru. They froze. Then both laughed, and the sound was strange, like a roasted bell finally ringing. Ebuka passed Kene a napkin. Amaka served Duru extra fufu. Little acts bridging oceans. Auntie Adama watched from the doorway, eyes glistening. That night, everyone were fed and finally left the table. 3 days later, Kene and Duru stood side by side on the disputed land. Tall grasses had taken over. The palm trees dropped like old men. We wasted 30 years over this, Duru muttered. Kene sighed. It's a good land. Still is. Ebuka and Amaka joined them. The silence was thick. Amaka spoke. What happens now? Kene looked at Duru. Split it? Duru smiled. No, Amaka's had stopped. Let's give it to them, Duru said, pointing to the younger two. Kene nodded. Let them plant peace where we sowed pain. The next morning, Ebuka dug the first hole. Amaka followed, planting a mango seedling. The whole village came to watch. Under laughter and jubilation, the first seed was sown. Not of trees, but of forgiveness. Weeks later, Amaka stood before school children, retelling the story. She used repetition. She mimicked voices. The children laughed, gasped, and clapped. But what happened to Kene and Duru? A child asked. She smiled. They sit together every week now, playing games, telling tales, no bitterness. Another child raised her hand. Why did they hate each other? Amaka paused. They forgot they were brothers. The room went quiet. And then one child whispered, but they remembered. One morning, a ripe mango dropped right between the benches where Kene and Duru sat. They both reached for it, then laughed. Shades, Kene said. You first, Duru replied. They split it. As the juice ran down their ends, Amaka and Ebuka watched nearby. It's over, Amaka said. No, Ebuka smiled. It's just beginning. The field was buried, and from its grave, reconciliation bloomed. Amaka was cleaning out her mother's old wardrobe when she found it. A yellow envelope, tucked between prayer clothes. The handwriting was familiar, trembling but clear. To Duru, my brother-in-law. Her mother had written a letter to the very man the family had once hated. Hands trembling, Amaka unfolded the page. I don't hate you. I never did. I saw the pain in your eyes at Papa's burial. I wanted to speak, but Kene's silence swallowed mine. If peace ever comes to our children, it would be the healing I never saw in my time. A tear dropped onto the paper. She tried. Amaka whispered. She wanted this long before us. Ebuka entered. She showed him the letter. He didn't speak for a long time. Let's make sure they know, he finally said. Amaka nodded. Let's tell them. Her heart never hated. Between the two halves of the compound, where the trench once lay, Amaka and Ebuka planted flowers. Children came to help. Aunties donated seeds. Even Auntie Adama watered the roots. One morning, Kene arrived with a shovel. Duru followed with cassava stems. The wall that once split the yard was gone. Now a garden stood. It wasn't perfect. Some flowers withered. Some days, old grudges crept like weeds. But every morning, someone came to tend it. Even silence began to bloom. At sunset, Kene and Duru sat by the mango tree. I thought I would die before this day, Duru said. You almost did. Kene replied with a small smile. Pride is poison. I blamed you, Duru said, for things I didn't understand. I blamed you back, and we lost so much. Kene turned to face his brother. Forgive me. Duru placed a hand on his shoulder. I already have. Then Duru did something no one expected. He said, I'm sorry too. No crowd witnessed it. No feast followed. But in that quiet moment, two men buried something heavier than hate. They buried regret. The village well had always been a place of chatter, where women gossiped and children splashed. But that morning, silence fell. His junior stood there, tall, dark-skinned, with sharp eyes and a scar across his jaw. He filled his calabash without speaking. When he turned to leave, an old man asked, "Who are you looking for?" The man simply said, "Kene and Duru." He walked away before anyone could ask more. That evening, Kene sat silently by the fire. Duru joined him. "Someone's asking for us," Kene said. "Who?" "I don't know, but he carries the past in his eyes." Ebuka, eavesdropping nearby, felt a chill crawl up his spine. Peace had just begun, but peace, it seemed, was not done being tested. 2 days later, the stranger returned, this time with a truth no one expected. "I am Obinna," he said, "facing both brothers. Your brother's child." Gasps rose from the crowd. Kene stood frozen. "My mother was Nneka." The man continued. "She left before the war, pregnant." Obinna nodded. "I have no land, no name, only stories. I came for answers and blood." The silence thickened. Ebuka stepped forward. "Blood can heal or destroy. What will yours do?" Obinna's eyes blinked. That deepened on how true your peace really is. Amaka reached for Kene's hand. The storm had returned, but this time in human form. Whispers spread through the village like wildfire. A forgotten child, a secret son, another heir. The elder called an emergency meeting. Drums beat across the valley, summoning even the most distant relatives. Some saw Obinna's arrive as divine justice. Others saw it as a threat. He will break what we've rebuilt, warned one uncle. His family, said Auntie Adama softly. But unity built on shaky ground is easily broken. Ebuka watched Obinna closely. He was calm, but there was fire in his voice. He wanted acknowledgement, land, legacy. Kene and Duru looked at each other. "I don't know if he is mine," Kene whispered. "But what if he is?" Peace was no longer just a memory. It was a question waiting to be answered. A week later, Obinna stood before the elders. "I do not come to break what you've mended," he said, "but I will not be hidden like a mistake." Kene kept silence, his hands clenched beneath the table. The room was heavy with questions. "Let it be a test," the oldest elder, Mazi Amadi, finally said. "Not of land, but of blood. A DNA test." Ebuka explained to those unfamiliar. "Science, to prove what the past couldn't." Duru looked at Obinna. "And if the blood is true, then I claim my place," Obinna replied. "Not as a stranger, but as a son." A quiet hum of unresting spread through the crowd. Later, alone with Amaka, Ebuka whispered, "If Obinna is Kene's son, that changes everything." Not everything, she said, just the way forward. She felt the tightness in her chest. Blood could not build bridges or burn them. The test results were still days away, but the village already buzzed like a hornet's nest. Some elders whispered, "He should be accepted regardless." Others said, "If he's real, he must inherit land." But it wasn't just about land, it was legacy. Kene sat in his room. The letter from Nneka laid before him. He had kept it all these years, unopened. His finger trembled as he unfolded it. "I was wrong to leave, but I could not raise a child in hate. If he ever finds you, tell him only the truth. Kene wept. Outside, Duru watched the sun rise. He remembered Nneka. Gentle, quiet, eyes full of light. If he is yours, Duru whispered to the wind, I will not stand in your way. That evening, the mango tree stood still. No laughter, just waiting for truth.